and I'm watching the rise. And I wouldn't say I'm shocked, cause I'm hardly surprised. This one's for the ride, this one's for who knew I'd make it, just needed some time. This one's for my wife, could've left 1,000 times just about my side. This one's for the grind, I knew it would.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Randy Kaye, and I'm the host of the Caught Up podcast. Today we have Scott Smith, who is the National Program Director of Bombers Fastpitch, where he is the head coach of the nationally ranked Texas Bombers Gold 18U team. Scott, it's always great to see you. Thanks for taking the time to catch up.
I appreciate it, man. I'm excited to be here. And when you reached out, I was like, absolutely, let's go. I love to talk softball. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man. I appreciate it. It's funny, when I first started doing this and I started putting out clips, I heard from Rico, and he was like, dude, you're pumping me up. Like, keep it up. And he said something to me that it was so funny because I had the exact same thought. He said, let's all support each other like the comedians do.
Yes.
And I thought that was money.
No,
so,
it's awesome.
Yeah. So, man, doing a little bit, obviously I've known you and seen you around for a long time, but I didn't really know your background or your personal history. And I mean, you start adding in like GM of the Texas Charge and, assistant coach of the Charge and the Scrapyard Dogs, Team USA Selection Committee. Dude, where do you find the time to do all this stuff?
My wife asked me the same question a bunch. I don't know. I think it stems from, when I was in the Army, I was in the infantry, so you're never not doing something. So when I retired, what's crazy is I did the Bombers while I was in the Army. I was very fortunate to have a situation that provided me the opportunity to both. So I was always doing a lot. And so now when I've retired, I don't know anything else. So I think I'd probably die if I wasn't involved in something. So that's just it's my way of staying connected. And plus, when you love the sport, you're never really working. You know how that is.
Right,
so if you love something, you're never working. So
right, lots of irons in the fire, many different hats. One of the things I've always noticed about you guys is you seem to be very structured. Does that come from being in the military?
I think so, man. When I was in the Army, that's probably one of the most important things I learned was just, I'll never forget it. I asked a question when I got to basic training. It was cold. It was freezing. And I asked, well, how come we can't have our hands in our pockets? And they said, because that's just not how we do it here. And don't ask why. Just do it. And so from that moment forward, I kind of understood there was a standard, and that was ingrained in me. So, for me, and the big thing is I've been super blessed to be surrounded by people that help establish the standard. And so that structure of, hey, this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to go about our business and be consistent in that way, is just kind of what we're built on. And that's kind of given us a foundation that we've able to kind of use as our foundation going forward in everything we do. So it's just how we are. And I don't know if we could do it any other way at this point.
Yeah, and going back to how do you have enough time? I mean, I think it boils down to is you just have a bunch of good people around you who support you and kind of have your back and share your vision of whether that's where you're going or the standard that you want to operate at.
I drive them crazy, Randy. I drive them crazy because I'm always looking to change things, and they make fun of me for that. They're always making jokes about that. But I always just feel like if you're not always trying to progress, well, then you get stagnant, and next thing you know, you look up and you're behind. And I'm fearful of that. I'm legitimately fearful of not getting it done because I didn't do enough. And I think that's probably what drives me personally. And you're right. I couldn't say enough about the people like David McCorkle and Bo Vinton, and I shouldn't even have started saying names because I'm
now
not
you got to say them all, right?
Yeah.
So just anybody who's watching this, just think, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
They carry me more than I carry them, so it's really, I'm just super fortunate and blessed.
Dude, it's funny that you bring up that you're always changing and evolving because I remember, I think it was like 2016 or 17. We were at fireworks, and I think we played you guys when I was still Firecrackers.
Yeah.
And I remember you had those, you were, and maybe I'm wrong here, but it seemed like you were kind of following that that Oregon, yellowish color,
Mm-hmm.
and you had those uniforms, and then all of a sudden you're, baby blue, or I don't know the exact, color code,
Mm-hmm.
but it's, to me, it looks like a baby blue, and I'm like, this dude's always like evolving. And then from even your website, Bombers Fastpitch, I don't know if it's always been that, but I always thought it was Texas Bombers. So to your point,
Yeah.
man, I feel like you're always adjusting, you're always tweaking, and I think, kind of reinventing what you do, or gathering information and making adjustments based on what you think is best.
Yeah, I think it's a compass check for me, to be honest with you, man. That stems back to my military is you're always trying to orient your azimuth on the right path. And a lot of times we just get off path. And I talk to our players a lot about this. It's called practical drift. And what happens is in practical drift, you do something the same way so often and so repetitive that you actually get off kilter. You get so far away from your standard, or what you say your standard bearing is, that you don't even know you're not doing it the way you've always done it. And so for me, it's always just a reorienting the compass for me, to say it. Plus, the other thing about the color thing is you can only do so many things with black and white. And we were just always trying to push our players to be excited about being in our uniform and be excited about taking the field with our jersey on. And then it kind of took on a life of its own. And then the Carolina blue thing is we basically said, hey, let's just integrate a third color as a permanent color. And that's what we've done. And that's been fun because it's given us an additional identity with our uniform. So, yeah, who knows, man? You'll look up and you'll see us in a uniform, and people are like, dude, y'all change your uniforms like you change your underwear. And I'm like, no, we didn't. You're exactly right. Our uniform provider loves it. I promise you that.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny you say that because, like, even for us, we went with kind of like that speed green, and I wanted it to be more of an accent color. And, I've had to fight with people a little bit, but they're like, hey, why couldn't we be this color? I'm like, well, that's because, I love red and black because I was red and black for years, but that's, to me, that I think of firecrackers. When you start talking about, navy and gold, I'm like, I think of Sun Cats.
Yeah.
And so, like, I tried to stay out of everybody's, off everybody's colors, but inevitably it's going to be something. We're going to cross paths somewhere. So tell me, man, like, how did you get started coaching? How did you get into softball? What brought you here?
Well, obviously, like a lot of people, I played baseball and played all the way. I played all the way into when I was in the Army. That's one of the first things I did in the Army was play on the baseball program they had. And so I was playing slow pitch softball at a pretty high level. And then I had a daughter first. I tell people, I say it all the time, almost every time. If I'd had my son had been born first, I'd probably never been involved with softball.
Yeah.
He'll tell you he was shortchanged on the baseball and the football side because I was so involved in softball. And he's probably right, because I'm one of those guys that once I decide I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And she took a liking to softball, and people around me knew I'd played, and they were like, suckered me in, like, hey, why don't you help? And I think I started off as an assistant coach, and next thing I know, I look up and I'm coaching her team, and there was only 2 Bomber teams. Our local rec program had a couple of people inside that rec program had decided, hey, we probably ought to try to do something a little different and maybe create a travel ball team. We didn't even know what travel ball was in little town of New Braunfels, which was probably about 30,000 people at the time. And they were like, let's create a travel team. We'll have 2 of them, and you can be the head coach of one of them. And I was like, all right, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I'm in the Army, but I'll figure it out. And that was cool for a year or so. And then like a year later, the person who started all this said, I'm out. I'm not going to do it anymore. You're in charge. I'm like, in charge of what? In charge of these 2 teams? And that's really what happened. Bombers started with 2 teams, and it's kind of nuts now to be sitting here with 165 teams in 28 states. And to think that just came from those 2 little teams has been fun to think about and to kind of reminisce about. But that's how I got involved. And I caught the bug like you did, and like every other person that gets involved with fast pitch softball. You love the sport. I couldn't coach baseball right now if I wanted to. You couldn't make me do it. It's so slow.
Yeah.
A fast pitch softball is just it captured my attention, and I love it. So yeah, that's how I got involved, and thank God I had a daughter first.
Right. No, I can relate on the son. I had two daughters, and then my son was last, and I had him in football, and I played football growing up, baseballs like everybody else, and he comes to me one day and he says, "Dad, I don't want to play football anymore." He's probably third, fourth grade. And I said, "Well, why not?" He said, and I thought I could like talk him out of it. And
Yeah.
he says, I don't like tackle. I don't like getting tackled. And I said, "Shoot."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, what about just defense?" He goes, "I don't really like hitting either." Like he's just, that wasn't his,
Yeah.
it wasn't him. It wasn't his mannerisms. But no, I can totally relate to that. But so from two teams all the way to, what'd you say, 160?
We're at 165 right now. Yes, sir.
Man, how, give me some insight on that, because I kind of have the same path. Of course, not anywhere near close to that. And I don't know if we could do that in Arizona, but one team as many as 23 when I was Firecrackers.
Yeah.
Dropped down to about 8 or 9 when I decided to do my own thing, and I'm creeping back up around that 20 mark.
Yeah.
But for you, like, I couldn't even imagine going to that number. Like, how do you stay on top of all that?
It goes back to the people. It goes back to having good people around you. It's very important to me that we didn't just create a program that you just threw your name on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like and I say this sincerely. I look this camera dead in the eye and tell you, I don't call teams and say, "Hey, you should switch over and become Bombers." I just don't do it. And I probably have said no to more teams that have inquired about becoming Bombers than I've said yes over the course of time. And not because they're not good enough. That wasn't the premise of it. It was always in the conversation process, I could tell that our goals didn't necessarily totally align. Not that they were bad people. It's just I always felt like coming out of that conversation, I was going to fail them somehow. And I'm not okay with that, because I don't do well. I'm a terrible loser. Like, I'm not the guy you want to chit chat with after a loss because I'm bad at it. I wish I was better at it. I wish I could be a better example to my players of handling losses better. So going back to the building the program part, I was always scared to say yes to someone and then fail them in some way because I don't do well with it. So seeking out the right people to become part of the program, and then having this like-minded, process that just, well, I have a friend that thinks just like I do. Would you be willing to talk to him? And it's usually been a word of mouth, and that's truly what's happened. And I didn't have a business plan to make it 165 teams. I didn't have a business plan to make it 5 teams, to be honest with you. And it just organically happened. And that's, I think, cool. That's the fun part is that you can look back at this and be really proud of something because, one, there's so many people that are involved. But secondly, it's just it organically became a thing. It wasn't done by some big plan. And I think that's probably why it's been able to stand the test of time a little bit, Randy, is that it was just done by true good people kind of surrounding themselves with other good people, and then that just kind of grew and it just kind of blossomed. But that's the best answer I can come up with. There wasn't a plan. And how we take care of it, 1,000% comes down to really good people. We have a director of national operations. Her name's Christy Connor. She's also involved with Athletes Go Live. She worked with them, but she handles a lot of our out-of-state communications. And then Bo Vinton, I'd be messed up if I didn't talk about Bo. Bo's been with me from the very beginning, and he's the guy that handles the administrative side of it. I handle the on-the-field softball player stuff, and he handles the administration and the business side, and we have 2 really distinct lanes. I don't get in his lane, and he don't get in mine, and that's a byproduct of my military background too. Is just not kind of micromanaging people, and so he has his stamp on this program as much as I do, and I'd be remiss not to give him credit for the administrative business building side of it for sure.
Yeah, I think like you said, organically, and just people recognize what you're doing, and then people recognize that that you have a brand that means something. and then people just, they gravitate towards that. And if you guys can align and they can help you, and or you could help them, but more importantly, I think it's important for people to know, like, what do I bring to this program? I get that all the time. Like, what does Rogue FC do for me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, man, that's probably the wrong question. Like, what can you do for us? I mean, there's some definite advantages that I feel that we can bring to the table, but like, what are you going to bring? How are you going to help build us and build this program? So
yeah, it was cool. It was really cool seeing you. And I know Tony was proud. Like, as much as he hates losing good people, I think he was, like, he and I talked about this. He was proud to see you stand up on your own and kind of create your own brand. And what his mindset with those things. I know he was proud. I was from afar, like, yeah, I could totally see it, and I knew that you guys would do well. But yeah, that's really it. Is like a lot of times and when I get that question, like, what can the Bombers do for us? That's a super hard question to answer, right?
Yeah.
Because there's the intangibles in the stuff that come from being part of our program. There's not a price tag to put on a lot of it, right? Like,
right.
Having a pitching call with Cat Osterman, right? Like, for your pitchers to have a conversation about pitch setup and mindset and stuff. I can't put a price tag on that. I don't know how to say, well, that's worth this. Like, I don't. So those are things that I usually struggle with, and that's usually a pretty good indication when the question is, hey, why is it work for me to become a Bombers? That's usually one of those questions where I'm like, I'm already going out a path. Like, I don't know if this is going to be a really good fit, because you're trying to quantify this financially or whatever that might look like. And I always struggle with that, because I immediately know this is probably not the right fit at that point.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Rico. I mean, we when I called him and told him, he said that. He said, I'm proud of you, go do your thing. And I'll be honest, man, it's as it's hard to build something, and then you think that everything just translates over, and it has been a tougher process than I thought. But we'll keep pushing away. People like you that support us in your way, or by recognizing our efforts. And I think it's so far it's been great, man.
It's awesome.
4 years in, and it's getting there. That's all I could say.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm proud of you guys.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Let's talk about Patriot games. How did it start? What was the moment that you said, we got to do something? I'll tell you what I love about it is it's a great location. It saves us a little bit on, extra travel. Tell me about it. Where'd it come from?
Yeah, it was like everybody, there's only so many weekends in a year that we get to play, and you're trying to jam 5 pounds of stuff into a 2 pound bag. It's really hard because you're trying to juggle all that. And we had went through a stretch, and we had been very blessed. We had went through a stretch, and when I knew I felt it was we had played we had a summer in 21 and 22, where we played in almost every championship of the summer. And so you're maxing the number of games. And we got to the end of the Alliance both those years. We played for the national championship, and we were just gassed. We didn't have anything left. I was disappointed in myself in not managing that process. Like, we just limped to the end, and we were such a good team to get to that spot. I was disappointed in myself as a coach in not managing the recovery and the load management and all the things that you say you're going to do a good job of. I thought I was doing a good job of it, and I just really wasn't. And so I just took a hard look at it, and it was more of a personal situation. I said, I've got to cut some games out, and I've got to kind of put I got to put together a structure of my summer that gives a better result. And I felt like we were breaking our players. And so I just had conversations with other guys and said, hey, listen, man, what if we could put together, and we had just became aware of Future Legends opening up in Windsor. And conversation was, what if we could put together an event that brought together as many of the top teams as we could in Colorado prior to the start of Colorado, which would take away a trip for anybody, because there were some other really good tournaments that we were going to have to make a decision to not play in. And it was never in the thought of affecting those tournaments. Obviously, there is some effect, but that wasn't the goal. We didn't mean for that to particularly happen. I was disappointed in that a little bit in that way because I care about those guys as well. But said, hey, can we take a travel trip out, save families some money? You're going to Colorado anyway. Mm-hmm. What if we went in a few days early, went to this one location, and then created a format that brought the top orgs, not just the top teams, but the top orgs, and have them bring their top 18, 16, and 1400 team and play in this location, and then create an environment where we're capturing data, and they have a morning where they get to do an org workout on their own, and college coaches can go watch them work out, and it cuts out some of the games. And then we just throw down and try to beat each other's brains in for a couple of days, and it only lasts a couple of days. And then we get a day or two of rest in Colorado to let our kids kind of acclimate to the climate and move over to our perspective wherever we're playing, whether that's fireworks or IDT, and take that process. What would that look like? And thank God, guys like you and Tony and all these guys, Marty, and everybody that's jumped on board for the Patriot games came. And last year was nuts. I thought a lot of college coaches would show up. I didn't know that many college coaches would show up, but we should have known when you put that many good programs in one spot. But that was incredible, the number of schools that showed up to watch.
Was there like 100? Close to 100 schools?
At least, yeah. So you figure you had last year we had 16 orgs, we had 48 teams, we had more coaches than teams. That's always a good sign when you got more coaches than teams.
Yeah.
But the what was shocking to me was we had every coach from the top 25 from last year was there, to include many, many more. But when you have every top 25 coach in America there, we had every school that was in the World Series last year there. And the response for this coming year has been crazy with college coaches. They were asking, 6 months ago, when is it? Is it the same date? I'm putting my schedule there. I'm not missing this event. So I'm excited. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember last year talking to coaches about this time, and they were asking for schedules, or we were talking about kids, and I said, well, you're going to Patriot games. And they're like, well, what is that? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, there was a lot of people prior to that, of course they're not on extra innings or on some of these other things. They're worried about their own seasons. But mm-hmm. once I told them what it was and who was there,
yeah,
they were all in. And I like I said, I can name 10 of them that were like, we're there. And they showed up.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a really cool. We added a few orgs this year. We grew, and that's the other premise behind it, right? It's not meant, or we're not trying to make it exclusive. That's not necessarily what the intent is. But we also are not trying to make it super big either, because that can, disintegrate all that we're trying to accomplish. So, but we did grow it to 20 orgs. So there's 60 total teams coming, and the couple new orgs that are added are going to be incredible. They're great additions to an already really cool field. It's a bloodbath. Like, you go here, and it is some serious softball jammed into a couple days, which I think is cool. And I think the players liked it too, from the standpoint, we did some feedback with a lot of the players that they liked the format, the number of games. We were playing on that same weekend prior to coming to Patriot. We were playing as many as 12 games over the course of about a 4-day period. If you went all the way to the end, to the championship. In this, the most you can play is 6, and that's if you play for the championship. Most teams are going to play 5. But if so you're cutting down that load on your players. So I think it's really cool. We made a really cool adjustment. Last year was we thought it would be really good if only the top teams from each pool got to play for the championship. That was an unintended consequence that happened where we had 2 teams tie for first. Neither one had a loss, and the one that lost on run differential didn't get to play for the championship. And I thought that was not okay for me, because you put a lot into it. So the top 3 teams from each pool will get to advance into a knockout championship on the last day. And if you're not one of those top 3 teams, and you play some matchup games as well on the last day, but it gives a better opportunity. It makes those pool games super important. And you could potentially still lose a pool game and get in and try to win the championship, which I thought was a better way to go about it. So that's one of the big changes we made.
That's cool. One of the things I like is that you mentioned it isn't as many games and it's kind of a more compact schedule, but your off time is not wasted. Like, your mornings are, there's workouts, or in the evenings there's college camps. Talk to me a little bit about that thought process. And the other thing I was going to ask you is, do you see, actually this just popped in my head right now. Imagine if there was more events, but they were smaller, and then somehow those events came together at another location at some other point, with the winners or things, you know what I mean? Like, because the size of, 20 teams, it just seems like a really good way to go. It's not so dragged out, so long. And I like that.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, Randy, because we also have our event company that runs events, and so it's always a slippery slope because the expenses that go into running a tournament or running an event. When you rent a complex, the cost of the complex is the same whether you have 5 teams in it or you have 25 teams in it. So when you start trying to talk about what you have to charge for a team to play at an event, and then you start talking about umpires, and can you get the best umpires to come work just a 20-team event when they can go over here and get more games? Like, there's so many factors on the backside that a lot of people just are not privy to in running. We start talking about comp rooms, right? Like, comp rooms to get the best umpires to fly across the country and come to Windsor. Like, we have to take care of those rooms. Well, the way you accomplish that is more teams participating. The hotels are comping you some rooms, and we give those right to the college coach. Not the college coaches, but some we give to college coaches as well sometimes that are working camps and stuff, but mostly to the umpires, because that's what you're trying to do, is get the best environment, the best teams, the best umpires, the best coaches, all in the one spot. So it's a really challenging thing if there's a really smart number to hit. And what you and I feel as coaches, we love the smaller event. It's cool. Like, there's a parking place for me to park in. And like all those things are creature comforts, because I'm a coach at heart. Like, I go through the same thing, right? But running an event is tough. I do wish there were more synergies created between other events to try and tie together. And that's one of the really big things that I'm certainly involved in the Alliance, and that's where I play for my national tournament. And I have in full disclosure, I have a vested interest in being part of their board and trying to do what's right. But one of the coolest things about the Patriot Games is we have teams that don't play in the Alliance there. Some of the best, because that's all I cared about. I want the best teams. And so I'm really thankful that guys like Rocky from the Thunderbolts are coming over and playing, and different people, Nathan with the Hot Shots and some of those guys, because those are teams that we don't get to play a bunch, because I am part of the Alliance and play Alliance and they play PGF. So that's one of the cool things about the Patriot Game. It's one of the few events during the year that has a competitive outcome with some of the best teams from both. And I think that's what makes it really kind of cool as well.
Right. No, that's a great point. What did you guys learn from last year that you're going to try to push forward? Like, was there anything that you were like, man, I know you have an event company, so you're probably pretty aware of the pitfalls, but is there anything you learned that you're going to be able to take care of this year?
I think I talked about one, which was the format a little bit. I wanted to make it a better tournament experience for more teams. A second thing I think is really cool is we're going to have an organizational champion, which we didn't do last year, which will have a point structure, so whoever has the best finishes with their 18s, 16s, and 14s, whoever that org is, there'll be a champion there. So I think there's a lot of pride in that. And that's part of it, is you have to bring an org brings their top 18, 16, and 14 to it. So those are some things that we've added. The data capture side of it was a little more challenging last year than I maybe thought I was embarking on. So we made some adjustments there. Some of that's going to be indoor. And the challenges were the outdoor environment. When you're capturing data in an outdoor environment, it presents a whole nother level of challenges. And so The data capture side is going to go into a controlled environment, into a brand new Alliance Performance Center that's actually 5 minutes from the ballpark, which is really cool. It's really nice that's going to be, it's a brand new facility. And so teams will have their own data time frame where they go in. It's all in a controlled environment. It's their time. We're going to capture the data and provide that to college coaches and back to the team. So those are some of the things. But for the most part, I think we're just really hell-bent on trying to make it better and really just try to provide as much response to teams. McCorkle's incredible in his communication with you guys.
Oh, yeah.
You can never say you don't know, because he's going to send you an email that it's probably that long, but you're going to have the information. So I just think we've tried to enhance what worked really well was to, okay, let's make sure we don't mess with that. And then things that could be fixed, we've just continued to try and kind of massage those things into and just push the event forward. So it's one of the things I look forward to the most now in the summer is that event, because I can't wait to get there. I feel like that's, and Marty and I have talked about that before. Mike with Bat Busters and I have talked about that. That's when a lot of teams, and I'm sure you're probably the same, that's kind of when your brain starts to turn a little bit towards the championship side of things. And Colorado is the start of that, where prior to Colorado, you're moving lineups around and you're letting kids compete it out to see who's going to maybe be that starter and stuff. So I feel like Patriot Games is a really cool thing to start using as the kickoff to the championship side of things in the summer.
Yeah, summer bracket play, man. You start trying to figure out what's working, and like you said, you've kind of tweaked things, but you start to narrow it down and see what's going to give you the best chance to be successful in the summer.
Yeah.
What about Future Legends? How's that? That was an amazing facility. Never played in a bubble before. That was different for us.
Yeah, it was different. Yeah.
Coming from Arizona. But what's that looking like? Is everything on track, and how's that going to play out this year?
Yeah, they had there's been some things that have been completed. There's some things that aren't completely done yet. They were anticipating having a few more fields done by this time. And I think there's a lot of factors. A lot of it was their weather. They had just crazy weather throughout the entire year. They've added a lot there. Remember last year, a lot of the walkways weren't completely done. So you'd have to go to the bubble. You'd have to get in your car and go all the way around. Well, all that's done. There's other parts of it that are complete, but there's other parts of it that aren't completely done yet. And I think that's just going to continue. That by year 3, when we're there, hopefully they've added the other 3 or 4 fields that we would love to have there. Because in a perfect world, we're doing everything, at 1 or 2 complexes at most. Right now, we're having to use at least 4, and there's 4 fields here and another 2 here, and it's kind of a little offshoot. But it's a byproduct of us just not having control of that. I wish that was something I controlled, but I don't. So our job is to make that process as easy and simple as possible for teams to navigate that. But yeah, it's really, really nice complex, and they even made some adjustments in the bubble. You remember the backstop, and that presented a little bit of challenges. But I thought, for me, even that was unique. It was really a cool experience for teams that had never played in a bubble environment. It's a big bubble. It's the largest free span bubble in the United States. So if you haven't seen it, Google it, and you'll be shocked at how big that thing is. But yeah, no, I think there'll be things that look like it did last year that aren't complete, and there's be other parts of it that are complete. I think one of the really cool things that's happening this year is the significant interest from businesses and companies wanting to come to this event. And so I'm looking on a board now, and we have people like Marucci and Easton Rawlings and Louisville Slugger and Line Drive Media and Athletes Go Live and Bonet and Mark Pro, and all these guys are all coming to set up and create this environment. That was never our intent, was for that, but I think they all see New Balance as another one that's having a significant investment in being here. So I think that'll be really cool for the players and the parents and that kind of environment. So yeah, I think that's going to be another really, I think, new and unique thing. The New Balance is bringing some new product that they're going to have guys like from your team and different people. They're going to be asking players to give feedback on, and product and testing and all kind of cool stuff. So it'll be a really fun environment. I think it's going to be cool.
Sounds like it's coming together. As long as the fields are in great shape, and I don't even care about parking. I can get dropped off at the entrance.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe a bathroom or two. I think we're good to go, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You mentioned it, and I had no idea. But tell me about your Alliance Performance Center, man.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Yeah, there's some really cool people that are in Colorado that partnered with EL1 and the Alliance to create a Alliance Performance Center. Named Ashley, and I've known of her. She runs the Colorado Softball Academy, and we got to talking, and part of it was just, and initially it was to let guys like teams like yours know, hey, when y'all are in town, you want to get some work in between games, we're here. And that's when the conversation came, like, hey, how can we do a better job of capturing data? And the conversation went right to, well, let's just utilize your facility for it, because it's an incredible facility, huge cages, bullpens, big open area for turf workouts and stuff. So going to be really cool. Line Drive Media is going to be there, set up. Brent Eads, his new company, covering the event from the beginning to the end. So they're going to be doing player interviews and coach interviews as well. So I just think it's going to be a really cool environment. Like I said, it's a controlled indoor environment, which will make my life a lot easier and being able to manage that process. But I think it's going to be really cool.
Absolutely. I like that name, Line Drive Media.
Yeah.
Back in like 2020 during COVID, just like you guys, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get video. And then we experimented a little bit, did some in-game stuff with Rapsodo. So, and every time we do an outside, a camp or try to gather metrics of our own, we don't do a big, we don't do a lot of it, but, every once in a while, organizationally, we'll try to get, a look at what a pitcher's ball's doing or try to get some video on kids. And you're right, man. If you're outdoors, there are so many different variables in order to capture the data and have it be, repeatable and have everything moving and feeling like you're not wasting people's time. So I can only imagine what that was like if you had any hiccup at all.
Yeah.
So good for you guys.
You have to worry about things not charging and running extension cords. All like it was all the stuff. We run camps, and usually a traditional camp will last a couple hours. And you can accommodate your logistics for that. But we were doing that all morning, and I made some mistakes, and I was disappointed in myself not foreseeing some of those challenges. And we made it work, but I'm really excited being in this controlled environment, and we're partnering with Hit Tracks, and so there'll be a Hit Tracks in every cage for the data capture in there. So multiple cages of that. So it's just going to be really, really cool environment for the players. Not sitting out in the sun and all those good things. So it'll be really good.
Awesome. Let's jump into another event that's happening alongside yours, and I'm sure it was, somewhat sparked by your event, which is the P5 event.
Mm-hmm.
How does that come into play in terms of, obviously it's great for college coaches because now you've got, another group of teams, and from what I understand, it's not too far away.
No.
From where you guys are at. How does that come into play, and where's that going in terms of relationship between, I'm just going to say you as Scott Smith and someone like Dave King?
Yeah. Well, Dave and I have been friends for a long, long time. And I would say that certainly there were some challenges in the beginning when the P5 thing was announced. But what's really good is because we are friends and because we care about one another, we had a good conversation about the perceived issues that might be there, and they're no longer issues. We've had a good conversation about it. I wish nothing but the best for that event, and I would genuinely say he wishes nothing but the best for the Patriot games. I'm not telling you that there won't be some synergies in the future, in some conversations in that. I think at the end of the day, just like us, they want what's best for the sport, no different than us. So I think what'll be interesting is what the ongoing conversations could look like and could be going forward. I guess that's probably the easiest thing to say. They obviously Dave and Triple Crown and all those folks, Krista and Steph and all those guys do an incredible job of running events. And so I think that if we did do something in the future where we try to create some synergies, we just try to bring together all of the strengths and powers that be that would just make the tournament experience better for everybody. So I don't know what the future holds in that regard. I do know this. So we've had some great conversations. I was just in Colorado, as a matter of fact, doing a site visit at Patriot Games in some of the fields. And I went over and saw Dave and those guys, and they've done some incredible upgrades at their ballpark. And so there's some things there that I think could bring some fun stuff that we could maybe have some synergies together in the future. But who knows? I just know that we've had some great conversations up to this point.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to say that too. Like, I don't know you as well, obviously. We don't talk a lot, but, when I need something or if I have a question, you're always good to reach out and we say hello at the field. I know Dave pretty well.
Yeah.
And I will say this, just from what I do know about you and what I absolutely know about Dave, is you guys have common goals, and that's to grow the game and make the game better and provide opportunities that, help not only the game, but the kids that play it and the coaches that are, trying to get to where you are.
Yeah.
And where Dave is. And so I think it's great. I do know that, or I heard that, that there's going to be some sort of collaboration as far as a coaches night or something at the Triple Crown facility.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the conversations we had. We haven't finalized all the details, so I'm not going to be great at giving you all the details to that. We had that initial conversation, like, why wouldn't we? Like I said, Dave has been a mentor of mine for a long time. That's a clear. I easily say that. And he's been probably a friend longer than a mentor to me. Like, he and I've been friends from the beginning of the time that I met him. So I nothing but respect for Dave and what he's done. And so it immediately brought the conversation towards what could we do together in regards to this. None of that's been finalized in a way that is meaningful that would warrant talking about it. But I would say that we did have a conversation about a potential coaches social to kind of kick off both events and bring people together, and which is exactly what we want to do together anyway. So I'm hoping over the next week or so we can finalize those details and kind of make a combined announcement about those things and see where it goes. But I think there's some real good opportunities in the future, hopefully.
Awesome. If you were to go back a year from now, or however long you started planning this, would Scott Smith say, and I don't know if you reached out to Dave or not prior to doing anything, but would you have maybe tried to work together a little more then if you were to go backwards?
Yeah, probably. If I was just being completely honest, where we've gotten to today. Now, at the end of the day, my initial thought process didn't include a conversation with them because I thought they had their hands full with Colorado that starts a week later.
Right.
So it was really more of a scenario where I don't want to burden with them with a 16, 48 team event in that sense. So really, to be honest with you, I didn't put a lot of thought in that, and that just goes back to me not being as perfect as maybe I'd like to be when you sit down in the moments after the fact. But at the end of the day, they've always been good to us and good to me. If I was answering your question honestly, I'd probably look back and go, hey, why don't you just call them and figure out if they would want to do something? My assumption was that they wouldn't want to do something, that they had their hands full with the fireworks tournament that's starting 3 days later. So, but yeah, I think if I was just being totally honest, I probably would have reached out in the beginning and done it in a different way, probably, for sure.
Well, it's like anything else, man. I tell the kids this story all the time. I had my kids pretty young, and so obviously not always, for me anyway, it wasn't the best path, or I don't want my kids to go down that path. and have kids and then have to work through and try to create a life. But now after the fact, wouldn't change it for the world. And I think at the end of the day, whatever it sparked in Triple Crown to create an event, and whatever, you learned by doing it, it feels like to me, just as an outsider and knowing both of you, that it's going to create some sort of ending that probably wouldn't have gotten there otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's a goodness. There's a goodness that's going to come from whatever we decide is the right
words
path.
I was looking for.
Yeah, whatever we decide is the right path for the two events. I think it'll be good for the sport, no matter what. I think it'll be good for him and I too. I'm at a point. I'm 56 years old, man. Like, I'm at a point where I don't put a lot of effort into worrying about things. I probably should worry more about stuff, to be honest with you, Randy, but I don't. I don't mean that like negatively or arrogantly. I'm saying like I'm just at a point where I'm like, well, I guess why are we worried about it? Let's go do this or that. What I do worry about is friendships and relationships and what's good for the sport of softball, because I'm so entrenched in the sport that I'm not okay with not doing something that's good for it. And I don't mean that jokingly. I'm just like, I don't want to be involved in things that aren't good for the sport. Like, I was telling my wife this the other day. We were talking about the summer about to get kicked off. And she asked me straight up, she goes, do you ever get tired? And I was like, man, I'm afraid to get tired, because I'm going to miss this. When it's done, when I'm done doing this, I'm going to miss this. And I'm blessed that she allows me to do what I do. And you know what that, our wives are for them to let us travel 20 weekends a year or 25 weekends a year, and to be gone, and, me to tell her on a Saturday morning, hey, I'm going to a ballpark so I can watch our 1400 team play, because I want to watch the shortstop that I haven't seen yet. And I could be going with her somewhere. So I'm just blessed to do it. So I don't waste a lot of time, because I don't think I have a lot of time left to enjoy this. So that's where I'm at. And that is a great example. The P5 and the Patriot games is a great example of me not wanting to waste any time with any rigidness there. I'd rather have a conversation, sit down with a cold beer and figure it out. Like, what would work the best? And I think that's where we're at. Like, in fact, I know that's where we're at. We're having some fun conversations. None of it's been nailed down yet, but I think we will all, when it's said and done, be in a better place when it's all said and done, for sure.
That's good. And don't mistake that quality for not caring or not worrying as a negative thing, because I think I think I have that same. I look at it personally as maybe not a good thing for me, because I don't worry about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But and then to some degree, in the same breath, I think it's probably a good quality, because I don't worry about things I can't control. I don't worry about things that that really have no impact on me. But I think that's a good thing. Yeah. So. No, I think that's all good stuff, man. I mean, I think it's going to be a great summer, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Let's talk about your involvement with Alliance. Let's talk about, why you got involved, and I've obviously, I know all the what's put out there as far as, trying to create equal access to resources and opportunities and things like that. But like for Scott Smith, like what was it that made you buy into that concept and want to do something?
No, I appreciate it, Randy. It's a good question. If you were just taking from my perspective, I was fine and completely happy with playing PGF. It was never about PGF for me. I got an invite berth like most of the top teams, so I wasn't like, oh, they're doing me wrong, right? That was not necessarily the case. I was becoming more and more challenging every year, trying to build an academy and build a program, and look at some of the teams in our program that were as good as they were and say, you're not getting this. And then look at across the country and see teams that weren't as good as the team I'm telling not good at getting that. It became harder to swallow in that regard. Now, that wasn't a tipping point for me. What was one of the kind of things that made me go, all right, let me sit back and let me think about what we're doing, how we're doing it, was I just didn't feel like we were playing for a lot of things that mattered. And I just struggled with that. Like I was having a harder time motivating my team. No, this game, I'm like, if there's a scoreboard, the game matters to me. In fact, that is absolutely one of my best qualities and my worst, right? Like Kevin Shelton laughs at me. He's like, bro, we're playing a pool game, dude. Why do you care? And I'm like, Kevin, I'm going to beat your ass today because there's a scoreboard and we're keeping score, bro. Like, and they laugh at me. And I get it. And they're joking. They laugh. We're great friends. But they don't understand why I care so much. And so that's just how I'm built. That's just how I'm wired. I'm going to kick my mom's ass if we're playing against it. We're playing checker grass. Like, that's just how it's going to be. I'll hug her when we're done, but she get beat. But at the end of the day, I was struggling to convince my players that the games mattered because we were playing so many games that didn't matter. They were getting handed a berth to nationals. I remember, back in the day when Gold Nationals, you had to qualify. I can't tell you how many times.
Right.
I qualified on the last game, on the last day, the last chance with a walk-off. Like, I mean, like those are different environments than what we were playing in 5-6 years ago. We were playing in an environment where you're going to nationals, here's your berth, didn't have to qualify, play a bunch of showcases, who cares who wins. I just didn't like the product we were putting out.
Yeah.
And I just didn't like it. And I was struggling with that. And then I was really struggling when you do have 100, and I didn't have 165 teams in, maybe I had 125 teams. But I was looking across the country at some really, and I think of one of them. We have a great director in Mississippi. His name is Tony Knight. He runs our Mississippi Bombers team. They're really, really good. They've sent kids to Washington and Ole Miss and Mississippi State. They're a great team. And they were like, I was having a hard time getting them into tournaments that I was in. And I was like, this is not okay. This is not okay for our sport. These people work just as hard as anybody. And the sport is holding them back. And that was when I was just like, this isn't equitable. I don't like it. And it's not pointed at any one person. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm saying just what I was involved in at the time, it just wasn't working for me. And I love the sport. And so that's when I was like, and COVID just came, when COVID happened, it just gave us a chance. I'm not kidding you, Randy. We would sit around on Zooms and I'd have a bottle of whiskey. I'd have an ice chest of cold beer, and we'd sit around and bullshit about softball with about 6 or 8 of us. And we'd try to figure out what would be best. How can we do it? And that's where the Texas Fastpitch League became a thing. We're like,
I remember.
Hell, dude, let's just do this. We say we want to do it. We want to make it available for everybody. Let's just do it. And that's really kind of how things started. And I'm not taking credit for that with the Alliance, but that was a kind of a like pushing the rock downhill, and it kind of grew. But that was really it. It was just, I don't think we're doing right by players, and I didn't think we were doing right by as a coach. I wasn't doing right by it. I just wasn't teaching the right things. And it was smoke and mirrors. I was trying to convince them games that technically didn't matter, that they did. And they didn't care. Now, like, hey, you're building a resume for your seating committee to decide whether you're going to be one of the top 16 seats. This shit matters, right? Who we get matched up against matters how deep you're going to go in this tournament. So this matters today. And a bad loss is a bad loss. We're not taking any bad losses. And now college coaches appreciate that because that's what they deal with every day. They can't, you've got Grand Canyon and ASU on your wall up there. They play a game in midweek. They can't lose to somebody not ranked. I mean, it hurts our RPI. And I just love that. I love that we play the same format. I don't have to convince them the games. It's hard to beat somebody. I am a perfect example. It is not easy to beat somebody 2 out of 3 times. You try to line up against Mike Stitt 2 out of 3 times for a national championship, figure out how hard that is. And our players, it is showing well for them in college. We are having kids go be freshman All-Americans, play conference players of the year, lead the country in stolen bases, those kind of things. I'm bragging on my players, but really what I'm bragging on is the process that's put them in a position where they can go in right away and go play for national championships in college because it's not that big a deal to them. They've been doing it. You play against the teams you and I play against all summer long, you're not scared when you get to college. You're not.
Right. It's funny you say that. I would just like one chance to play Mike Stith in a national championship and have to try to figure that out.
When I looked up in the first inning, I was down 7-0, and it ain't that fun. But
yeah,
it was fun.
Well, in order to experience that, you got to get there. So I'd be happy with that right now.
No, I got to be. Hey, you know what? I'd like to get back. You and me both.
Oh man. And yeah, and college coaches are, they want to see kids learn to compete. I remember Tricia telling us when she was here at Arizona State, she said, hey man, just don't let them forget how to compete.
Yeah.
I've had, obviously you probably heard that 1,000 times too. Like everybody just, we want them to compete.
They were feeling like they were losing that edge of competition because of the environment that the sport had gotten into. And, to be honest with you, I love that PGF is doing well. I love that PGF exists because it holds the Alliance accountable, and now hopefully the Alliance is holding the PGF accountable, and they're both getting better. And teams have a legitimate option, right? Like you have options. It's no race. There never should be no options. Like I don't have a problem. Like I'm competitive. I want Alliance to be the best product in the sport. But for us to do that, we got to keep pushing and we got to keep finding ways for it to be better. And I hope that makes PGF do the same thing, and it just continues to make the sport better. And but as far as the format that exists in the Alliance, and players getting recognized across the country that you may not normally get to hear about, and teams, I mean, heck, dude, the first year nobody knew who the Warriors were. The Warriors,
right?
I mean. Those guys rated
West Bay Warriors.
Yeah, they went out and won the 16U national championship. Now, it helped. They had Megan Grant and all those guys. But nobody picked that team and nobody knew who they were. That obviously wouldn't have been a normal change. They wouldn't have gotten an invite berth to PGF. They may not even have got to PGF. Who knows how the qualifiers would happen? Like maybe they did or didn't. But they got to the Alliance. They qualified, and I guarantee everybody they beat along the way found out who they were pretty quick.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's and that's one of the things to me. Like, I love the format of Alliance. We went there last year with our 18U team. Had a great time. Loved the format. Loved, and what I like about it too is you kind of get an opportunity to go to where you fit at that point in time. Mm-hmm. So that was good. And I echo you on the whole qualifying part. Like, I'm going to tell you, like, my only complaint right now is, like, look, longevity-wise, I think there's some people that are not getting invites to PGF that probably should. And I don't care who you are. Give the berths to the top 6, 8, 10, whatever you want. Mm-hmm. But, like, I don't care who you are. Go try to win 5 meaningful games on a weekend. Back in the old days when there was, 45, 50 teams here in Arizona, and half of them were coming from California to qualify. Yeah. It was really hard to qualify, and we had to do it every year.
Yeah, it is.
And I just don't feel like it's that right now. And don't get me wrong, like I love both events. I'm friends with everyone that that's a part of both organizations.
Sure.
But man, I would really love to see, somehow it work. And I think it is working exactly how you said it. Like, I think people like Alliance is holding PGF accountable, and PGF is, trying to one up Alliance and make their events better. So I think everybody's kind of doing their job in that regard. I just wish there was a little bit more synergy, like you said. And you ever have any thoughts of like, man, it would be good to go back to a PGF and go play in that, event?
Well,
you ever have that?
I don't know that I necessarily have those thoughts anymore because I love the concept of the Alliance so much. But I would say this. I do miss playing against certain teams. That's what I love about Patriot games, right? Like I truly love it. There's a handful of really good PGF, if you want to call them PGF teams, that participate in. But yeah, I think that's really more what I miss more than anything is the chance to play certain teams that I don't normally get to play. But at the same time, like. I got all I can handle in the Alliance. Like, I mean, when you got to deal with Marty and Mike and Tony and you and Ryan Taylor and Greg, like it just never ends. The amount of really good teams in the Alliance, you just can't. You end up just gravitating into this pocket in that final 8. Like, It's no different than the World Series. Like, it is a bloodbath, and you are going to come out of that with players that have an appreciation for how hard it is and what it takes to compete, to play against that level. And
Right.
and I was telling people, like, Josh Erickson demolished us in the national championship. We handled her for most of the summer. Like Mike and I played 6 times that summer, and we were 3-3 against it. The problem is 2 of those 3 losses I took were in that national championship. And so I give them, and Mike and I have had this conversation, I give their players a ton of credit. That you're talking about some of the elite players, elite hitters, they made a ton of adjustments. We didn't play bad. They just played better. And that was incredible. And watching her, I had an appreciation for and watch her. And now you're watching her in college softball. I'm watching, the players that I had that are in, Citlali Gutierrez at Texas that's doing what she's like. These kids have been through wars. So it's not shocking to me that they're on the verge of competing again to get to the World Series. Like, they've been doing that, and they've been down that road. That's not shocking to me.
Yeah, you're not going to get lucky in a championship game, and maybe one team didn't play as well, and you happen to get them. Like, the better team, or the team that was playing better that series, is probably going to win.
Yeah, like,
because you do have to go 2 out of 3, right?
Prior to the championship series, the game prior to that, we run-ruled Mike. Like, we did a 12.
Wow.
And so, like, but I knew, like there was a difference. So I knew that 12-0 score was not indicative of what they were. I also knew it wasn't indicative of what we were. Like, we just played really well that day. We got them a little bit. I think they pushed back some pitching that we didn't see. And they had a player probably eat that loss a little bit, where they would have normally made a change. Like, those are all the things the cat and mouse game comes into it. Like, well, we might have to see them tomorrow in the championship series. We're not going to show this stuff. And I've learned a lot about that. I think the California teams are a little better at hiding than we are, because we've had to spend so much time proving we belong. So you just throw your best at people.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, and it's almost a trap. Like, it truly is a trap sometimes, because they get a better sense of it. And so we've had to make some adjustments in how deep we create our pitching staff and how we kind of handle that. And Kat and I talk about that quite a bit. I think there's some uniqueness to that. The other part of it too that I really like about the Alliance, Randy, is and this isn't a slight again, but I don't like the concept of walking into a room and pulling a ping pong ball out of there and deciding who will play. Like, there's such an injustice to that when 2 of the 2 best teams, you could have the top 5 teams, and 2 or 3 of them, 4 of them are playing one another in round 1. That's such a disservice to the entire summer. And I think it's just, I don't like luck being involved in that process. Now, granted, the argument on the other side would be, well, but the best, you got to beat them all anyway. I don't think you got to do it in the first game, right? And I think that's a tough way to go about it. So I love that we have guys like Derek Allister and those guys that are on that seeding committee, and they get it right. Like, last year, 2 years before that, I was seeded number 1 and number 2. Last year, I was seeded number 8. I finished 9th last year. They had me dead on.
Dead on.
Yeah. So, I just think they do such a good job, and they're so conscious of doing what's good for the sport, and there's no bias involved in it. And I love that. I love that that's where we're at with that. So it's cool.
No, it's tracking. It should be fun. What let's talk a little bit about your college coaching career.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I had no idea, and you shot me that text the other day when I had reached out. What brings you to Texas Lutheran, and how did and how is it different, or what do you like about coaching in college?
Yeah, no, it's really cool. One, it's 10 minutes from my house. And then the other thing is I have friends that coach there. And so a conversation just happened, and we came to a agreement that, hey, why don't you come be our hitting coach? And we talked about that, and it was really cool. And year one we go to the World Series, and year two we go to the World Series. I just think, wow, just go to the World Series every year. Last couple of years we've ended up in the regional. We just lost this back a couple of days ago. We lost in the regional final to a really good ETBU team that was ranked second in the country. And it's a really cool experience. It's Division III. And so a little different athlete, a little different level of an athlete than I'm accustomed to getting to coach. But I think it's been so rewarding for me and so good. There's a lot of coaching going involved.
I was going to say, do you think it makes you a better coach?
Oh, it's made me a better coach. Partly it's made me a better coach because I'm around some really good coaches that are helping me become a better coach. And I'd like to think they probably say it as well, going the other direction. I bring certain things to it. And we at one point this year we were leading the nation at every level, Division I, II, or III, with the best batting average in the country as a team. And I was proud of that because we have not been that in the past. We've been a really big pitching team, and we've tried to just generate and manufacture runs. And it was just really good environment, really good experience, and one that I've truly enjoyed. Great people, great players, great all around.
What do you think was the biggest factor to making that, getting to being the best average? Was it something that you've picked up, or is it something that you were training specifically?
I think it was my fourth year. So a lot of those players I've had for 4 years. And so I think finally we'd gotten to a place where maybe they trusted me a little more.
For sure.
And I think that, and as much as well as anybody, how big that is when players trust, and you're telling them, hey, go to the back and look down, and let's cut a ball off, and she's going to try to throw you middle away. Let's turn the outside into the middle, like all the things we would do. In the past, I might say that to them, and they did that about 50% of the time. This year, we did it 100% of the time. And it was just really cool watching players buy into the process a little bit. It's different in that we don't get to have those hitters in individuals and those kind of things. So it's a lot of work that goes in, and that jammed into that season. And so it was just fun. I just think we put it together finally. We had a pretty senior heavy group, and it was disappointing us losing, because I think whoever won our regional was going to go on to the World Series. I think ETB will go on to the World Series, and we were in a tough. I think we were ranked 7th or 8th, and we're in with the number 2 team. So it wasn't like it was an easy regional. So it was good. I hated for the seniors having to lose in that environment, but boy, we battled, because we got smoked the day before. We got beat 12-0. And there's some factors. We had a 6-hour rain delay where you're sitting on a bus, and they didn't. They were already done for the day. And there's just some really unique things that came into us getting beat, and I was proud of the way we responded the next day. And we were out in front of them the entire game, and then we made one mistake, and that's how you get beat. That we just made one mistake, walked the bases loaded with 2 outs, and they came up with a big hit. So it was just a really, really cool experience.
What is one thing you've learned in college or being around those other coaches that you've been able to take back to your program?
I think probably the best thing for me is being an assistant. I've only been a head coach. I've been an assistant coach in the NPF, but believe it or not, there's not a lot of coaching that you do in the NPF. It's more of a traffic cop more than anything else, and because they're so talented. I mean, at that point, you're just trying to stay out of their way. But I really had never been an assistant coach in the big picture. So what was really good for me was having that, being able to just focus on a task and not have to have the bigger, broader view of the team and all of that. And then being able to support our head coach, Wade Wilson, who's really, I think I saw a stat the other day. He's has the second best winning percentage in all of softball, current winning percentage.
Wow.
Yeah. Like we've won the conference title like 10 years in a row. And like, it's nuts how much they win there. Really surprised he's TLU's been able to hang on to him because he's a really good coach. So he and I, it was really cool and refreshing because he legit turned the offense over to me, and we just had some great conversations about how to generate wins, and we did it together and some great other coaches, and he just really was really good at utilizing his assistants, and it kind of validated for me the way it's supposed to be done, for sure.
Yeah. Did you ever, like, being an assistant there, did you ever feel like you wanted to tap into, because I mean, as Bombers, you have a ton of resources as far as, other minds, and I'm sure, data capture or, anything training wise. Did you ever feel like you wanted to tap into that a little bit, or you just kind of stay the course with, with what you were doing there?
Are you talking about coaching college?
Just more? Coaching college, yeah.
I think it's always in your mind. But I love what I'm doing so much with the Bombers. But I think it's always in your mind, and I it's crazy to think that you could say no to anything. I don't think I would ever rule anything out. But I love what I do with the Bombers, and I love the way I get to do what I'm doing. So yeah, like I just think that if I'm on a softball field, I'm pretty happy to do, and being with the Bombers allows me to do that a bunch. So yeah, it's I would never say no to something. At this point, I wouldn't rule anything out, but I can tell you this, I'm real happy with the Bombers for sure.
That's awesome, man. Anything else you want to put out there for our listeners, or anything that you feel for the game needs to hear?
No, I think, I appreciate you just having me on here. It's an exciting time of the year with postseason softball happening and super regionals, and I'm sure you're like me. I'm getting to that point where I've had my feel of watching softball and ready to be out on the field a little bit more frequently. And we're only about a week and a half away from down here in Texas at getting our team back on the field full time. So I'm just excited for that, and I'm excited for the sport. And the sport's better for guys like you doing these podcasts and getting people to get some perspective, maybe from a travel ball coach or somebody that they wouldn't normally get to hear. So I just appreciate you having me on for sure.
Yeah, you got it, man. No, you've been great for the game, and anytime we can get any insight from somebody like you, I think it's valuable for everyone. I don't know how many people actually listen to this, but there's probably a couple. So we'll keep on rolling, and I'll tell you, man, my goal is 100. I'm going to do 100 of these, and you've spent some time in this space, so you know what it takes to do it, and what you had to learn just to even understand how to put it on YouTube or whatever it is. Yeah. So I'm going to grind it out, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I got to think that at some point, more guys like us are going to be talking on video and talking the game, and hopefully doing like what Tony said, man, just supporting each other to grow the game and then make it better for all of us. So,
well, hopefully I didn't mess up any, cost you any followers. Hopefully that's not the case.
No, I guarantee you 165 teams, I'm sure there's a couple that are going to want to hear what you have to say.
Hey, that's for sure. It's going to be great. I'm going to have you on our podcast for sure soon, man. We'll talk softball. But thanks for all you do, Randy, and can't wait to see you guys out on the field this summer for sure.
You got it, brother. I'm going to do a real quick outro, and we'll get out of here.
You got it.
All right. I just want to say thanks for listening. We will continue working to elevate the sport and get caught up with those who are influential in the fast pitch community. And hopefully we can help you navigate your softball journey. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Caught Up with Randy Kaye, or at Coach KAZ. You can listen on Spotify under Caught Up with Randy Kaye. And also follow us on X and on Instagram using the same handles, at Coach KAZ. Thanks again for listening.